Hi, I'm Matt Barry. I'm an independent filmmaker, and this is Low Budget Visions, where we celebrate personal DIY independent cinema. And today I'm talking with Nicholas Adamson. Uh, Nicholas and I had connected through YouTube, through Twitter a couple of years ago. He's got a lot of interesting projects going on, and today I thought it would be nice to hear about those in more detail and learn about where you can find them. So, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to you, Nick, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Nick. I live in Leeds, Yorkshire, England. I'm a filmmaker. I used to make films with my friends when I was younger, but just sort of for a laugh. And then I left school and didn't really do much with my life. I just drifted along for a bit, and then I had some sort of not midlife crisis, maybe a quarter life crisis, where I just thought, what am I doing with my life? And I wanted to do something else. So I went back and studied film, and I studied film at college and then university, and they kind of I felt like they made me take it very seriously, and I didn't want to. So when I left, I just continued making films that amused me for a while, and yeah, so I think I'm now at a time where I'm starting to take it a bit more seriously. So I've got more projects going on, and I'm sort of moving from project to project and not finishing them, but trying to improve every time I reinvent myself.
Great.
So
And
yeah.
I when I kind of first found your work through a YouTube your YouTube channel, The Don't Tell Show. Do you want to talk a little
Hmm.
bit about how that started and kind of what the purpose of that channel was?
Yes, sir. So this was at the time when I was making films for a laugh, sort of, and I was trying to get when I left uni, the sort of options were to move to London and try and make it into the industry there, but I really wanted to just get back up north. I didn't want to go. I felt like uni, like Joel Haver often says that film schools they train you to be a grunt in the industry, and that was how I felt there. There were a few people on my course who had very clear artistic visions, and they had no encouragement. So they went off and made tea for people in London, and I didn't really want to do that. So I came home and I was sort of looking for work, and I got a few little bits here and there, sometimes corporate work, and I met someone through that work who was very much into cameras and stuff, but not into writing or ideas or editing. He liked to shoot things. He liked to take photographs, and he's into that sort of thing. And I'd filmed something with him, I think, and he'd given me a memory card, and there was a note on it about starting a YouTube channel. But I wasn't sure if he'd just left it on there because it was his card or not. But I wanted to do it anyway, so I thought I'll pitch it to him. And I'd never actually asked him if it was intended for me or not. But I pitched it to him, like the Don't Tell show, and the idea was at the time I wanted to do because I was watching a lot of YouTube videos at the time, trying to understand filmmaking a bit better, even though I just studied it for 5 years. And but they were all about how to make your shots cinematic and stuff like this. The people that are doing those videos, they never seem to actually make films. I'm like, I don't see how a single shot can be cinematic without everything else that gives it that weight and that magic. So I thought, well, what if we did one and we made the films and then we talked about them and we did what would be DVD extras if anyone cared about releasing the films on DVD. Because I didn't realize at the time that other people were doing that. But like, it sort of came later on.
Right.
So that was the idea at the start was to make a short film and then the week after say. So when I was writing it, I was looking at this script or I read this in this book and I got this idea, but I wanted to do it very honestly. So say I had all these ideas that worked, and then I had this one that I'd never seen before. So I thought I'll try that, and it didn't work, so I won't do it again. I wanted to, I wanted to do one like that wasn't just like this is how you do it. You'd be like this is how you can also fail at it.
So
So
it
that
sounds
was
like
how the
yeah, I just want to say, so it sounds like you were really not interested. I mean, not just interested in just making the films, but also really showing the process behind it, and really trying to give people kind of a real transparent view of what actually goes into it and what you can achieve doing it that way.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, that's what it started off as, in the hope that it would improve, and then we could get feedback as well. And because I've always thought there's this thing about I thought that this would be a great opportunity because still the films I was making were very strange. I think I have a strange sense of humor, And I feel like when I was just putting films out there, people just thought they were weird, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I think it's harder, if a more established filmmaker does something strange, everyone will defend them because they're a professional filmmaker. But if you're trying to do something different and all you have is the film to show for it, people will just think you're doing it wrong. Because they assume, oh, well, obviously they were trying to make Citizen Kane, but they've ended up with this thing that's a mess and makes me feel weird. So I thought also it gives you a chance to explain that, yeah, that was intentional. I
Right.
did want you to feel like that, and I wanted you to laugh there and stuff like that. But we started doing that, and then COVID hit, so we started doing reviews because we thought we'll just keep the channel ticking over, and then that took over the channel. So
Well, no, I really like the direction that you had taken it. I think at the time I discovered it, you were spotlighting a lot of indie films out there. It was being very, very supportive of them by just giving them a showcase and talking about them. And I think that's often one of the hardest things for independent filmmakers is simply to find people out there who are willing to take the films on their own terms. Like you said, a lot of times I think filmmakers who are trying to do something different at this level, they get nailed for doing it wrong. There's an assumption that you don't know what you're doing or you did that incorrectly because you're really trying to make Citizen Kane. But as you say, that's not necessarily the case at all. It comes down to having that personal vision that you're trying to get across. And I think you really did a great job in, highlighting that in your reviews. Made me want to see a lot of the movies. And so, yeah, I really like that. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about your short film, Black Dog, that you made? I thought that was a really interesting movie, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how that came to be, your process of making it, anything you'd like to share.
yeah, well, I think that carries on from where I was up to actually, because it was sort of the lockdown kicked in and I started doing the reviews. And then while I was doing that, I think I saw Chlorine, Dan Lott's film, and then I discovered Cody Clark, Joel Haver. Started finding out about the folk filmmaking thing, and then realized there was like Doom Productions were basically doing what I wanted to do, but much better quality. So it was because we'd been working with actors and we had a load of actors ready to work with, and we were planning on making these Ken Loach sort of films with more like a bigger cast, more people in the room, a lot of natural dialogue and that sort of thing. So we thought we can't really do that now. But what if just two of us could go and make a film sort of thing, just me and the cameraman? And he didn't really want to be in it, but I convinced him. I said he'll be off camera just talking, and slowly like moved him in front of the camera. So that was where that came from. I thought, let's just go do something now. Well, just the two of us, we can go do it. And it was a lot easier to work that way because we just went in the morning, shot for a few hours, and then went home. That was it. That was it. We didn't get stressed out. We didn't spend too much time on it. We didn't run out of steam. We just we just shot it like that. um, it all seemed to happen really quickly. I did an audio commentary for it, and I watched it again and couldn't remember anything, and I had to go back and think through and then look through because I had so many different drafts of the script. I kept rewriting the morning when we were going to do it, and then ad libbing and stuff like that, and it was really hard to remember, other than the sort of technical aspects and filmmakers are doing this, let's go do it. It's hard to remember where everything else came from because it happened so fast.
Yeah, you talk about the audio commentary. I mean, that's a really interesting idea for a couple of reasons. Partly because it does serve as a personal diary to help, jog your memory if you're trying to look back on it and remember how certain things came to be or, how you did certain things, but also as a way of revealing the production process for new filmmakers coming to it who might say, this is a really impressive movie. How did he make it? I'd like to do something like that myself someday. And so by
Mhm.
putting all that out there, like you mentioned earlier, it's basically the equivalent of like DVD extras as if these films were being released on DVD. So yeah, I think kind of revealing the filmmaking process, demystifying the filmmaking process is such an important part. And I'm curious, having gone through, you mentioned you went through film school, is that correct? Uh,
But yeah, well, university. I studied
oh
film at
yeah,
university,
okay,
so you
right,
have
and
it's a bit different. Yeah,
yeah.
it's the
Do you
closest thing we have.
Gotcha. Do you feel like having gone through that, through university, studying film and everything, do you feel like in some ways the way it was taught, did you feel like it made it almost seemed the filmmaking process seemed more intimidating than it needed to be? Like in terms of teaching like the professional, the kind of the right way, the industry way of doing things.
Um, no, it was just really focused on technology.
Okay.
It was strange. I kind of like it was an experience. I'm glad I did it, but I kind of don't feel like I feel like I've got the same from just making films myself because we still made the same mistakes and stuff. The same. I always have mistakes with scheduling. I never have enough time for anything. I just think I can do that. We'll just do it in one take, and it never works out. And something goes wrong, and then I don't get anything done. The, the only time, I produced someone else's film, that was the only time it worked and it was because the most of the people working on it were over 60 and they wanted a tea break every hour. That was the only time when we sat around just drinking tea. But it took forever to make the film.
Right.
But yeah, I felt like a lot of like guidance on that and scheduling stuff that was actually practical like that. We didn't do anything on. We didn't do anything on directing or working with actors. The script writing classes were strange. Like we would just get things. One time we were told to write an internal monologue, and the tutor said, "Oh, and you can't get out of it because you're going to read them out. Everyone's going to read them out loud." So I started writing mine, and someone at the back started reading theirs out, and I'm like, "I've only had about 10 seconds to write. Calm down." And I thought that's not an interior monologue. Like what they started reading out. I am walking down the street. I'm looking at a building. And I was like, that's not what goes through your head when you're walking down the street, surely. That's not an internal monologue. So I started rewriting it like they had. But it was just going through and everyone was repeating the same thing. And then I thought, I don't know. I scribbled it out and went back to what I had. And I read it out. And he just said, no, that's wrong. I don't think it was a clip of a black man walking through London in what looked like the early 60s in black and white and looking at these houses and stuff. And he was like, "Oh no, I don't think that man would write the way that you've written it." And I was like, "I've just paraphrased phrase. Everything I've just written was paraphrased from a book I read about a black man who arrived in London in the early 60s." And he was just like, "No, you're wrong. Next." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, it just didn't make any sense to me at all.
Right.
I was like, "I can bring you the book and show you that's a published book, and you're telling me that it's wrong. What?"
So it sounds like you really found your own way of doing things by making films on your own and learning from your own mistakes, your own approaches. That's I
Hmm.
think that's a way that a lot of people feel like they can really kind of find themselves as a filmmaker. Find exactly what it is they want to say, what they want to do, and how to do it. I know that you mentioned on the Don't Tell show that you had a focus on realist film, and you mentioned Ken Loach, I guess, as a particular influence. Do you want to talk a little bit about his films and realist filmmaking generally, how it inspires you and how you see yourself as part of that?
Um, yeah, I can't, it's really hard to explain. This is something that sort of bothers me a lot. Is that like I can sit down and write a scene, and I think that sounds realistic, but then when I look at it again, I'm like, that's only realistic in terms of like the genre of realism, if that makes sense. It doesn't. Occasionally, I'll watch something and I think that sounds real, but I can't explain what it is there. It's just a feeling that sounds like a real conversation, but I can't replicate it. So I think my thing with it is just an obsession with trying to get that feeling, but having no idea how to without just filming people.
Right. Do you find that do you ever take an improv approach in making films? And if so, do you find that that gets closer to that kind of realism that you're seeking?
Yeah, I do. I do myself, but not everyone likes it. Sometimes I've acted in scenes where they want to stick exactly to it, and yeah, I think it's hard for everyone to get on the same page as well with that. That's another thing. Like whenever I've acted in other films, I can be because I don't really know anything about acting. I'm like I get that character and I can like click into it and then improv. And if I can't, then it doesn't work. But yeah, it's I've been in other films where they haven't let me change a single word, and I think I can't do it. It gives me so much stress trying to say exactly how it is when there's words that sometimes dialogue's written to be read, not spoken. And when I'm trying to do that, there's words that I wouldn't use every day that I'll struggle with, and I can't get that word across. So it's weird how to get that balance and how to. It's I think a lot of it's finding the people that are happy to do that, because some people will just say no, and some people will just go off with basically no direction. Which is that is how, like, the weird thing is that when I was a kid, when I was about 12 or something, I met this new group of friends, and we'd go play football and stuff. And then we came back one day and they just said, "Oh, if you come out after tea, we're making a film. So bring your camouflage." And I thought, what are they on about? Making a film? And we came back out and we remade Aliens in the back garden with this guy's mum just stood with a camcorder. And it was basically us running around and going down a slide and stuff in camouflage and going do 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 do. And like, I think you can, when you watch, I've still got a copy of it, and I'm sure you can see when I'm watching it, I'm just like, what is going on here? And everyone's talking in American accents. And there's a bit where someone says, "Sergeant Adamson, what is it?" And I just go, "I don't know," in a really Yorkshire accent, because I had no idea what was going on. But we used to do that. That was what we did with those films. They'd just say, "Let's go make a film." Right, you're gonna have a fight and you're gonna push someone into that wall. Go, and we just make it up. So that's where I've come from. But then finding other people that can do that, that's the hard part, I think.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I kind of find myself in a similar position, I think, with in a similar relationship with improv, where I think like yourself, I came out of, making films as a kid where improv was just sort of what you did, and you kind of had to uh, go with that. And I think over the years, I've certainly done many, many scripted projects, and there's certainly types of films that, I think need to be scripted that are best as scripted films. But what I have found, especially as I've started making features, is that I like to go back to that improv approach because there's that sense of freedom, almost kind of creative play that comes with it, I think, where you can,
Mm.
but it is key that you have people who, I mean, who you trust first, but also who are comfortable, who are on board with that approach. And I think if you can get that, if you can get everybody together on the same page, really interesting things can come out of improv. I would say I'm at a point personally, I don't know how you feel, but I'm personally at a point where I prefer that approach. I think it's more interesting for me because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's a little bit more experimental, but when it clicks, something really magical can come out of it. I'm not sure if you would go that far or not, but I that's at least where I'm at right now with it.
Yeah, I think it's that you can feel it, can't you? You
Mhm.
can feel when everything's going that right way. But yeah, like the this is like the sort of the misconception about Kubrick, that he was a perfectionist, but he made people do takes over and over again. I think that's what we're talking about here. Like I'll have a full structure scripted, and I'll often have the whole thing scripted. But then when we get there, it's a bit dull anyway, isn't it? To just run through what you've got on the page.
Yeah,
You just like, what if we did it like this? Especially now when we're shooting on digital, we can shoot forever, can't we? It's not
right.
taking up any space to do takes to do. Well, what if we just did it completely different? What if we made it up, and then we might find something else along the way?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big misconceptions about improv. People hear improv and they think that it's just people showing up with a camera and turning it on and just making it up as you go along. And but as you say, that in many cases with improv, at one level, it actually requires even perhaps more thought, more planning than you would do with a fully scripted project because you have to be prepared to, well, first you have to have, like you said, the outline. You might even write a script in its entirety, but it's when you get on the set, then the additional ideas start coming into play. And like you might do multiple takes, trying different things. So yeah, I think improv is actually a very complex process, and it's something that maybe people just hearing about it for the first time or who have never done it, they think it's a very casual, kind of make it up as you go along sort of thing. And I think it's actually a lot more involved than that. It sounds like that's what you're describing too, that you'll go into the project with a full script in some cases, or at least an outline, a structure, and then
Mhm.
go off of that. So yeah, that's when I think really interesting things can happen. I'm
Yeah,
curious. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I think that's when you get everyone in the room and then other things start. That's when you get that feeling that I'm always trying to find, that this is a real conversation. I found when I was directing a film at college once, and I went outside the room when I was supposed to be. They were rehearsing it, and I just went into the other room to do something, and I thought it sounds better from here because it sounds like there's a conversation going on in the other room, and I'm not distracted by looking at it. Some people think that that's weird because I do it sometimes, and they're like, "He's not even listening." I'm like, I am listening. I'm just not looking." But yeah, there's something weird about that. If you isolate it and you can hear the conversation, then you can say that doesn't sound like actors now. So I think we're doing it right, and then I'll go back in. But yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Did improvisation play a big part in the making of Black Dog?
Yeah, it was a mix of things because, like I said, the cameraman was behind the camera.
Hmm.
He had no interest in acting or being on camera, so he did have a script in his hand, and he was asking me questions and stuff. But actually, when once we got going, we threw that away, and there was a lot because we were shooting stuff, and I was editing it, and then we'd come back maybe 2 weeks later. I'd sometimes rewrite on the morning, so I thought, actually, we don't need that bit in now because we've sort of covered that, but we can get this bit in, and we can work around that idea instead. But then we would get there and change it again. I can't remember. There was a lot of chopping and changing, but very in the moment. Yeah.
One last thing I wanted to ask you about Black Dog was, you take this basically a documentary approach to it. It's a I don't want to call it a mockumentary. I mean, that I think implies a level of comedy to it, but it's a it's really a blend, I guess, of documentary approach and realistic writing and acting. Can you talk a little bit about the process of how you pulled that off? Because I think it was very effective. I mean, it really does blur those lines very convincingly. I don't know if you have any insights you can share about how you pulled that off.
Um, no, I don't know. Well, this is what I thought was strange is that the first scene in it is the first scene we shot, and like I said, the cameraman didn't want to be in it. But I don't think we even had any dialogue for that, and we did action, and it's like the second take that's in the film. So I think there's quite a lot of what's in there is very close to reality because I think he must find me very irritating because it took basically no direction for him to get that annoyed at me. And I was watching it the other day, and there's some bits where he's saying he's sort of talking about things that didn't happen as if they did. Like he was so into it that he was writing backstory in the moment. But it's really strange. But then there's other bits in it. There's some bits in it that are just my views about documentary, about finding narratives in everything. It's something that's a preoccupation of mine, I think. So there's a lot of stuff in there that does come from that, from being so close to reality.
Yeah, I like the subtitle of the film is a raising awareness film, which I think gets at the kind of almost like meta, layers of reality, documentary, fiction that you explore in that. So, like I said, I think it's
Yeah,
very
and like the mockumentary thing. Some people called it a mockumentary when it first came out, and I thought it was a docudrama. That's
Mhm.
what I would call it. But now I'm thinking about it, I think it is a mockumentary because it's mocking documentary. But I feel like mockumentaries generally are mocking the people in it for a comedy reason. I feel like this was about the documentary as a medium, I think.
Right. So it goes after the form, kind of looks at the form itself. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so
I wanted to ask you about another one of your projects that you're working on, which is the M62 films. I know that you've done a lot of work in sharing Northern cinema and supporting that and getting the films out there. Can you talk a little bit about the M62 Films project, what you're doing with that, and where you see that going?
well, yeah, the M62. Well, I think the end goal of what I'm doing, I've got the Don't Tell show is coming back in August. So I'm going to start doing reviews again on there. I've got the M62, and then I've got the Folkflix, which is it's just a Twitter account really, but that's promoting the folk filmmaking, the feature films and stuff. So I think the end goal of M62 is to make feature films on that channel, but with that well, I don't know if you know there was a TV strand in the '70s over here called Play for Today. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
Like it was TV. They called them plays, but some of them were 90-minute features. Some of them were directly. from plays, and it was in one set, and it would be like an hour long, something like that. But they had these plays on every week that were all like very of the time, and a lot of them were very edgy, and they were like 40 to 90 minutes. I think some were longer actually towards the end. And like most of the writers and directors that are still going now all came through that sort of thing. They all had their first break there, and there were loads of actors that just wrote one script that was made into a play for that strand. And that's sort of where I want to go again, because I feel like when you see films about the north of England now, they're still like the kitchen sink films. They haven't taken on anything that's happened since the early 60s. So that's sort of what I want to do, is build that channel up enough so that we can have filmmakers come in and make play for today's for today that are like more like folk films, really, like
Right.
45 minutes or longer. So there's like, because in this country there's quite a lot of funding available for short films, but then no one can make the leap to feature film. So I want this thing to sort of sit in the middle, and hopefully I could get funding for that eventually. I want it to sit in the middle, and then they'll have something there that's they can make shows that they can then make the next step up to feature film.
I'm trying to remember, was Kathy Come Home, was that produced as part of that series? Or was that
It,
another one?
no, it was. I think it was a Wednesday play, which was just before then. I
Okay.
think that there was. Yeah, I think Play for Today started in the early 70s. I think there was Wednesday play. There were loads in the 60s, 70s. There was like 30-minute theatre, Wednesday play, um, play of the week. And then there was the horror ones as well. There was so much going on. Like
Hmm.
not we get barely any of that now. You
Yeah,
know,
no, it's an interesting format to help bring feature films into production. I mean, that's such a common refrain that we hear, I think, from so many indie filmmakers, is that it's that difficulty of making the leap from shorts to features, which I think is often at just a conceptual level. It's not that we don't have the technology or the means to do it. It's just thinking about it, thinking about how to do it. And yeah, I think by providing that kind of support and a place to show the films, on the M62 channel, it sounds like that would be a really great initiative to support that.
yeah. So that's where it started there with everyone's films that are already out there. So that's sort of how I'm trying to slowly get people to get on board with YouTube, but by saying,
Yeah.
well, your film's already out there and you're not really doing anything with it. So what if we put them all in this one place and we can build up some steam that way? And then the next stage was to get films exclusively, that started happening now. People have started doing that themselves. I hadn't chased anyone for it, so people are now giving me films that are coming straight from the film festivals onto the channel, which will
Nice.
hopefully
So
give it a boost.
yeah, that's good to
And
hear.
then
It's gaining momentum.
yeah, yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't feel like it to me, but people outside are saying that it is. And then I did approach someone about a film the other week, and they said they'd already heard of us and were thinking about of giving us a film. So
That's great. Yeah, sometimes I guess if you step back and look at how far it's come, look at what you've done with it so far, you can really see the evolution of the project, the growth that it's had. And it may seem kind of small when you're in the moment, going moment by moment, but when you step back and look at it, it's like, yeah, it's really grown. It's really evolving into something. I mean, that's great that people are hearing about it and actively seeking you out as a place to put their films. I think having that kind of curated approach is so important because there is so much work out there, and that's great. It's great that there's so much, but it can be difficult to find it. This is something I'm often talking about with people that I discuss these things with. We say there's so much out there, and how do you get people to look at it? How do you get it into one place where they know where to find it? So I think M62 sounds like a great initiative for that. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to, any other projects that you'd like to mention or promote today?
No, well, no, I just said like I'm going to be relaunching the Don't Tell show
Yeah.
in August to carry on to just pick up where I left off, but just to make it clear that that's what the channel is now, the reviews and the spotlights and stuff. Because what I wanted to do this year was to get a load of people together who will talk about films that way. Um, to try because I think we've talked about how it's so much easier now to make a film and to get it out there. But I feel like the next stage needs to be convincing people that these are real films, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean. Because
Mhm.
the films are there, but people will be like, oh, but it's not a real film, though, is it? Or they'll go, I'll you go send them a link to YouTube and be like, look, there's all these films here you can be watching. Like, oh, but most of them won't be very good. Yeah, but you spend all day flicking through Netflix because most of that's not very good. Just why can't you just give this a go? So that was my plan for the year. But now you've already started talking about films again now. And you, late night 99 is now doing spotlights again.
Oh yeah.
Doomed Productions, Doomed Productions are asking people to submit films to do that again. So it seems like it's already starting without me,
Well,
which
I
is
think
great.
that, yeah, the more people we have talking about them, the more the word gets out, the more people learn about them, and like you said, the more context that they have, it legitimizes the entire effort. I mean, we all know that we're perfectly serious about making these films, and that there's a lot of value to them. And then getting that word out and helping other people to find that for themselves, I think, is really important. So I'm glad to hear you're coming back with more videos at the Don't Tell show. I think it's an excellent channel, and for anybody watching this who isn't already subscribed, I highly recommend that you go and check it out, subscribe, and follow those videos because there's a lot to discover out there, and it's a great portal for doing that. Um, is there so I mean, before we sign off, I just want to, like, one last time, if there's anything else you'd like to add, anything we haven't discussed that you'd like to mention, I'm happy to do that, and
Uh,
it'll be a good time.
I think that's it for now. I think I've
Okay,
got yeah. There's a lot planned, but I've just not actually pressed record on anything yet.
sure,
Although I've set up the seller again. They're ready to go for this
great.
video. So this is the first step, I guess. Other than all the reviews I've already written.
Yeah, I think this hopefully was a good interview, a good overview of your projects, and people go out and check out the M62 Films channel. Lots of interesting films coming there, and to help support the northern filmmakers as well, northern cinema, and of course the Don't Tell show, which is, as I already said, a great place to find out about so many other interesting films out there as well. So, Nick, thanks for speaking with me today, and
Thank you.
I'll make sure to put links to all of your YouTube channels, projects, and other places where people can find you on social media in the description of this video. And I guess the best way for people to connect with you personally is probably through Twitter. Is that right? Is there anywhere else that you'd like to direct people to find your work?
No, I'm mostly on the Don't Tell Show Twitter.
Don't Tell Show.
Most
Okay,
of my time.
great. So yeah, look up the Don't Tell Show on Twitter and of course on YouTube. All right, Nick, thank you. I think that covers it. And thanks again for speaking with me. And best of luck with all your projects.
Thank you very much.